The restaurant's chatter still clung to Natalie Quinn's ears as she unlocked her front door. It was late, much later than she'd planned. Her hospital shift had run long, and her co-workers had insisted she join them for dinner, a rare treat she seldom allowed herself. She had laughed, toasted with her glass of red wine, and let herself feel normal for a few hours. Now, walking into her quiet home, the weight of reality settled back over her shoulders. "Hey," Lena Hart's voice called softly from the couch. The babysitter stood and tucked her phone into her bag. She looked fresh despite the long evening, her chestnut hair tied up in a messy bun. "Ethan's already out. He went down easier than usual tonight." Natalie smiled with tired gratitude. "That's a miracle. He usually bargains for an extra story or a glass of water." Lena grinned, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "Not tonight. He was a little clingy, but after 2 stories, he conked out." Natalie pulled some cash from her wallet and pressed it into Lena's hand. "Thanks again, Lena. You're a lifesaver." "No problem. Get some rest yourself." Lena waved and slipped out the door, her footsteps fading down the porch steps. The house felt heavier in her absence. Natalie locked up, kicked off her heels, and padded down the hall toward Ethan's room. The nightlight cast a warm glow across the space, illuminating shelves of dinosaurs and picture books. Her son lay curled beneath his blanket, his dark hair sticking to his forehead, his little chest rising and falling with steady breaths. Relief softened her features. She leaned down and gently tucked the covers around him. That's when his lips parted. "Mommy," he murmured, voice thick with sleep. "Why was the other lady pretending to be you?" Natalie froze. Every muscle locked in place. She stared at her son, her pulse roaring in her ears. "What do you mean, sweetie?" she whispered, her voice unsteady. But Ethan's lashes fluttered, and he drifted deeper into slumber, offering no answer. For a long moment, Natalie sat there, staring at her little boy. She told herself it was nothing. Children dreamed strange things all the time. But her unease wouldn't settle. Slowly, she stood and backed out of the room, closing the door halfway. In her own bedroom, Natalie changed into pajamas, still replaying Ethan's words. "The other lady pretending to be you." She tried to laugh at herself. Maybe Lena's stories had sparked his imagination. Maybe he had half-dreamed it. She'd had wine. She was exhausted. Her mind was making too much of it. But when she turned toward her nightstand to plug in her phone, her breath hitched. There, neatly placed beside her lamp, was a hairbrush. Natalie frowned. It wasn't hers. She owned no brush with a pale ivory handle carved with delicate swirls. She reached for it cautiously, her fingertips brushing bristles still warm, as if someone had used it only moments ago. Her reflection in the mirror beyond the nightstand seemed to waver. For the first time in years, Natalie felt unsafe inside her own home. And somewhere down the hall, her son slept peacefully, completely unaware that his whispered confession had opened a door Natalie couldn't close. The morning sun streamed weakly through the blinds, chasing away the shadows of Natalie's restless night. She had hardly slept, tossing and turning with Ethan's whispered words echoing in her ears. By dawn, she had convinced herself she needed answers. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, half asleep with a spoon in his cereal bowl. His little legs swung back and forth as he yawned. "Hey, buddy," Natalie said, setting her coffee down. She kept her voice casual. "You said something funny last night. About another lady pretending to be me. Do you remember that?" Ethan blinked, chewing slowly. For a moment, she thought he'd shrug it off, the way kids forget their own words. But then his eyes narrowed, thoughtful. "She looked like you," he said softly. "But not you." Her voice was different. "She read me 2 stories. You never read 2. Natalie's stomach turned. She reached out and smoothed his hair. "And Lena? Was she there too?" He nodded. "Uh-huh." She went to get water. That's when the lady came in. She sat on the bed and smiled at me. A chill rippled down Natalie's spine. She forced a smile. "Maybe it was just a dream, sweetheart." But Ethan's gaze was steady, unshaken. "She smelled like flowers." "You don't smell like flowers." Natalie sipped her coffee to hide her trembling hands. An hour later, once Ethan was at school, Natalie dialed Lena. "Hey," Lena answered brightly. "Everything okay?" Natalie hesitated. "Yeah, just wanted to check in. Ethan said you read him 2 stories last night." There was a pause. 2? No, just 1. He was tired, so I put him to bed after Goodnight Moon. Why? Natalie's heart sank. Nothing. I guess he dreamed it. They chatted a few more minutes, but something gnawed at Natalie. When the call ended, she opened her laptop and scrolled through social media. Curiosity, or dread, pushed her to check Lena's profile. Her breath caught. At 8:43 p.m., the exact time Lena should have been at her house, Lena had posted a photo of herself at a cafe downtown, laughing with friends. The caption, "Much-needed study break." Natalie stared at the timestamp, her pulse pounding. Ethan's bedtime was 9 o'clock. So, who had been in her house? That evening, Natalie confronted Lena directly. They met at a coffee shop halfway between campus and Natalie's home. "Look," Natalie began, sliding her phone across the table to show the post. "You were here last night, but you told me you were at my house with Ethan." Lena's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "No, Nat, I was at your house. I swear. That post was... Oh, I scheduled it earlier in the day. I do that sometimes, to look less boring." Her voice shook, though, and her fingers twisted nervously around her coffee cup. "Ethan said you left the room to get water," Natalie pressed. "While you were gone, someone came in. Someone who looked like me." Lena's face drained of color. "That's impossible. I never left the room. I swear." Natalie leaned back, studying her. "Then how do you explain the hairbrush?" "What hairbrush?" Natalie described it, the ivory handle, the carved swirls. Lena shook her head violently. "I've never seen it. And I didn't bring anything with me except my bag." The cafe around them hummed with chatter and laughter, but their table sat in a bubble of tension. Natalie lowered her voice. "If you didn't leave him, then who was in my house?" Lena didn't answer. Her hands were trembling too much to hold her coffee. That night, Natalie searched the house again from top to bottom. Every door was locked, every window latched. The brush sat on her dresser, mocking her. When she finally lay in bed, she told herself she was imagining things. Stress, exhaustion, overwork. But sometime after midnight, she woke to a sound. The creak of a floorboard, just outside her bedroom door. Natalie sat up, heart pounding, straining to listen. The house was silent again. She slipped out of bed and padded softly into the hallway. Ethan's door was closed, the nightlight spilling from underneath. For a second, she thought she saw something, a shadow, long and slender, retreating down the hall toward the kitchen. She flicked on the light. Nothing. Just silence. Still, as she checked on Ethan and stood in the doorway, she couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't alone. And somewhere in the dark, someone might be pretending to be her again. Natalie couldn't shake the weight of unseen eyes. For days after the brush incident and Lena's shaky alibi, she found herself checking locks twice, pulling curtains tighter, listening for every creak in the house. Each night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for something or someone to move in the shadows. Ethan, though, seemed strangely calm. One evening, as he scribbled dinosaurs in crayon at the kitchen table, he said it like a fact, not a fear. "She came back last night." Natalie's hand froze on the dish towel. "Who did, sweetie?" "The other mommy," he answered, without looking up. "She stood in the yard. She waved at me." Natalie's throat went dry. "You saw her from where?" "My window." He filled in the dinosaur's spikes with green. "I wanted to wave back, but she put her finger on her mouth like, Essent. She looked just like you." A chill gripped Natalie's spine. She forced herself to breathe. "Ethan, if you ever see her again, you tell me right away. Don't wave. Don't talk." "Okay." He nodded, still focused on his drawing. To him, it wasn't strange. It was almost comforting. To Natalie, it was a nightmare she couldn't wake from. That night, after Ethan was asleep, Natalie sat in the living room, every lamp on, waiting. Midnight came and went. Around 1, exhaustion dragged her under. A sharp click jolted her awake. The sound of the back gate swinging shut. She crept to the window and peeled back the curtain just an inch. The yard was silvered in moonlight, grass shimmering like wet glass. And there, standing by the fence, was a woman. Natalie's breath caught. Her silhouette was unmistakable, the same height, the same hair tumbling over her shoulders. Even the tilt of her chin was familiar. The woman turned her head slowly, as if sensing the gaze from the window. For one terrible second, Natalie swore she was staring at her own reflection. Only this reflection was smiling. Then, just as suddenly, the figure slipped into the trees and vanished. Natalie stumbled back from the window, heart slamming. She locked the doors again, checked the windows, checked on Ethan 3 times. But the unease only grew stronger. The next morning, she called the police. Detective Marcus Hale arrived with the weariness of a man who'd heard every story twice. He stood in her kitchen, notepad out, dark eyes calm. "So, you believe someone entered your home?" he asked.
"Yes."
"Or, at least pretended to. My son swears a woman who looked like me was in his room." "And you saw her yourself?" Natalie hesitated. Saying it aloud made it sound insane.
"Yes."
"In the yard. She looked exactly like me. Not just similar, identical." The detective raised a brow, jotting notes. "Any signs of forced entry?"
"No."
"Any threats? Messages? Property missing?" Natalie shook her head. "Just that hairbrush. It wasn't mine." Detective Hale closed his notepad gently. "Look, Ms. Quinn. Stress and exhaustion can do strange things. You work in a hospital, right? Long hours. Single mom. Maybe your son's imagination is bleeding into your own." "I'm not imagining this," Natalie snapped. Her voice cracked, betraying the fear beneath her words. He studied her, then softened. "I'll file a report. Patrol can keep an eye on the street. But unless there's evidence of a break-in, there's only so much we can do." Natalie wanted to scream. Instead, she nodded and showed him out. When the door shut, she pressed her forehead to the wood, fighting the rising tide of panic. If the police wouldn't help her, what would she do when the woman came back? That night, Ethan woke screaming. Natalie rushed into his room, flipping on the light. He sat upright in bed, tears streaming down his cheeks. "She was here," he cried. "She was sitting on the floor right there." He pointed to the corner of the room. "She told me not to be scared. She said she's the real mommy." Natalie pulled him into her arms, rocking him as he sobbed. Her eyes darted to the corner. Nothing. Just toys. A stuffed bear slumped against the wall. But the air felt heavy, like someone had just left. Natalie tightened her grip on her son, her mind racing. If this woman wasn't a dream, wasn't a trick of exhaustion, then who was she? And why was she so determined to take Natalie's place? Natalie hadn't called Vivian in years. Not for birthdays, not for holidays, not even when their mother passed away. The rift between them was deep, carved from years of resentment and unspoken words. But now, as she sat at her kitchen table clutching her phone, her hands wouldn't stop trembling. If anyone knew where to start untangling this madness, it was Vivian. The line rang 3 times before a cool, cautious voice answered. "Natalie." Natalie swallowed.
"Hi, Viv."
"It's me." A pause.
"Then, well."
"I didn't expect this call." "I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't important," Natalie said, her throat tight. I think someone's been in my house. A woman. She looks exactly like me." Silence hummed across the line. Then Vivian's voice, lower, almost wary. "You saw her?" Natalie's breath caught. "You sound like you know what I'm talking about." Another pause. Then, softly, "I was wondering if it would happen to you, too." They met that evening at a quiet diner off the highway, the kind of place with cracked leather booths and coffee that tasted like burnt toast. Vivian sat with her arms crossed, her sleek black hair pinned back, her sharp green eyes studying Natalie as if she were a puzzle. "You look tired," Vivian said, not unkindly. "I haven't slept properly in weeks." Natalie leaned forward. "Tell me what you know. Please." Vivian sighed, tapping her spoon against her cup. You remember how unstable Mom was. You remember the phases, the way she used to reinvent herself. 1 month she'd be an artist, the next a teacher, then a new woman. Natalie nodded, a knot forming in her stomach.
Yeah.
But what does that have to do with? She wasn't just pretending, Nat. Vivian's voice was flat. She became other people. She'd study their mannerisms, their clothes, their voices. It wasn't just acting, it was obsession. I found journals once. Pages and pages of her imitating women she envied. Neighbors, nurses, even teachers at our school. Natalie stared at her. That doesn't explain why someone who looks like me is showing up in my house. Vivian hesitated. Her gaze flickered away. Because Mom didn't only have us. The air seemed to drain from the room. What do you mean? Natalie whispered. She had another child, Vivian said finally. Before you. A girl she gave away. Or lost. I don't know the details, Mom never talked about it, but I overheard things. A name. Serena. She would have been a few years older than you. And if she inherited any of Mom's tendencies. Natalie felt the booth pressing in around her. Serena. A name. Heavy and sharp, suddenly alive in her chest. You're saying she's out there? That she's been watching me? Pretending to be me? Vivian nodded slowly. It wouldn't surprise me. You're everything Mom wanted to be. Stable, respected, loved. If Serena found you, maybe she decided to take that life for herself. That night, back home, Natalie sat on Ethan's bed as he slept, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. She brushed his hair back, her mind a storm. Another sister. Serena. The woman in the yard. The woman in the room. A noise broke her thoughts. The faint creak of the floorboard outside the door, the same sound that had woken her nights before. Natalie stood, every nerve screaming. She opened the door slowly, heart hammering. At the end of the hallway, a figure stood in the dim glow of the nightlight. A woman, her own face staring back at her. Hello, Natalie, the woman said softly, smiling. It's about time we met properly. For a moment, Natalie couldn't move. The hallway felt like it had collapsed in on itself, the world narrowing to the figure at the other end. Same hair, same eyes, same tilt of the smile. But there was something wrong about the smile. It was softer, almost sweet, yet undercut by something hungry. Serena. Natalie's voice came out hoarse. Get out of my house. The woman tilted her head, amused. Out of our house, you mean? Don't worry, I haven't touched him. He's mine too, you know. Natalie's blood ran cold. Ethan is my son. Serena's smile widened, eerily familiar. He's already starting to believe otherwise. Children are smart. They know their real mother when they see her. Natalie's hands shook, but she stood her ground. If you come near him again, I'll call the police. Serena's laughter was soft, almost pitying. The police? Do you think they'll believe you? You sound insane already. A woman who looks like you? Who else could it be but you? Her words coiled around Natalie's spine. And in that moment, she realized Serena wasn't just trying to scare her. She was setting a trap. Over the next week, the invasions grew bolder. Neighbors mentioned seeing Natalie at the store when Natalie had been at work. Packages arrived at the house, ordered under her name, but with things she'd never buy: floral perfume, expensive dresses, hair products. At the hospital, her supervisor pulled her aside. Natalie, is everything okay? You've been forgetting shifts, missing paperwork. You're not yourself. She hadn't forgotten. She hadn't missed anything. But someone wanted it to look like she had. Natalie's world was unraveling, and Serena was tightening the strings. Worst of all was Ethan. One night, as Natalie tucked him in, he whispered, Mommy, I like when the other you reads to me. She's calmer. She doesn't get tired like you. The words pierced her chest. Ethan, listen to me. That woman is not me. She's dangerous. You must never go with her. But Ethan only frowned. She said you'd say that. Natalie's breath hitched. She told you that? He nodded sleepily. She said you'd try to keep us apart because you're scared. Natalie sat in the dark long after he fell asleep, her heart breaking. Serena wasn't just pretending to be her, she was turning her own son against her. Natalie went to Detective Hale again, desperate. "She's impersonating me," she said, voice shaking. "Neighbors have seen her. She's showing up at stores, using my accounts. She's in my house. She's talking to my son." Hale looked at her with measured patience. "Miss Quinn, we've checked your house twice. No signs of forced entry. And these purchases, credit cards can be stolen. Accounts hacked. As for your son, children say things. Do you think I'm making this up?" Natalie snapped, her voice cracking. The detective sighed. "I think you're exhausted. But I'll be honest, if she looks exactly like you, without proof, the case gets complicated." Natalie leaned back, numb. That was Serena's plan all along, to make her sound unstable, paranoid, to erode her credibility piece by piece. And it was working. That night, Natalie woke to Ethan's bed empty. Panic shot through her. She ran to the living room and froze. There, sitting on the couch, was Serena. Ethan curled at her side, asleep against her arm. Serena stroked his hair gently, humming a lullaby Natalie hadn't heard since childhood. "Get away from him." Natalie's scream tore through the silence. Serena looked up calmly.
Sure.
"You'll wake him. Don't be so dramatic, sister. He's safe with me." Natalie's chest heaved. "He is not your son. He doesn't even know you." Serena's eyes glittered. "Oh, but he will. He already prefers me. And soon no one will be able to tell us apart." Natalie lunged forward, but in an instant Serena slipped away, like smoke through her fingers, vanishing into the night, leaving Ethan behind. But Natalie knew this was just the beginning. Serena wasn't trying to steal her identity. She was trying to become her. Natalie didn't sleep for 2 nights. She sat in Ethan's doorway with a kitchen knife in her lap, her ears straining for the creak of floorboards, her eyes stinging from exhaustion. Every shadow felt alive. Every gust against the window made her flinch. Serena was circling closer. Natalie could feel it in her bones. Finally, she couldn't take the silence anymore. She called Detective Hale again. Not as a frightened mother, but as a woman ready to fight. "Meet me," she told him. "I have proof now. And I know who she is." They met at the station. Natalie laid it out. The journals she'd found in a box her mother had left behind, pages of obsessively detailed notes about a baby named Serena. She showed him the photographs she'd dug from the attic. 2 toddlers, herself and Vivian, with a blurred-out figure in the background, another child whose face had been scratched away. "Serena Vale," Natalie said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "My half-sister. Our mother gave her up, and she's come back. She doesn't just want my life. She wants my son." Detective Hale leaned back, brows furrowed. "If what you're saying is true, then we're dealing with someone who's been planning this for years. She knows how to play with identity. That makes her dangerous." "Dangerous?" Natalie leaned forward. "She's in my house. She's in my son's head. If you don't stop her, she's going to take him." Hale's jaw tightened. "Then we set a trap." That night, the plan was simple. Hale's team would keep watch outside while Natalie pretended to sleep. Cameras covered the doors and windows. If Serena came, she wouldn't slip away this time. But when the house went quiet, Natalie's nerves frayed. Hours crawled by. Midnight.
1, 2.
Then, Ethan's scream. Natalie bolted down the hall, heart in her throat. Ethan's bed was empty. The window was open, curtains blowing. She spun, screaming his name, only to find Serena standing in the yard, Ethan in her arms. "Put him down," Natalie shouted from the window. Serena smiled sweetly, rocking the boy against her chest. "Why fight it, Nat? He already knows I'm the better mother. I'll love him the way you can't. You're tired, worn out, afraid.
But me?
I'm whole." Ethan stirred, whimpering, caught between dreams and reality. "Mommy." 2 voices answered at once. "Yes, baby." Spotlights snapped on, flooding the yard. Officers surged forward, guns drawn. Serena froze, her face still composed, almost smug. Detective Hale's voice thundered. Put the boy down. For the first time, Serena's mask cracked. Her eyes darted between Natalie and the window and the officers closing in. Slowly, deliberately, she kissed Ethan's forehead and set him on the grass. Then she lifted her hands. I just wanted my family back, she whispered. The officers swarmed, cuffing her wrists, dragging her away. But as they pulled her past Natalie, Serena twisted her head and smiled. This isn't over, she murmured. You can lock me up, but you can't erase me. You and I are the same. Later, when Ethan was finally safe in her arms, Natalie held him so tightly he squirmed. She pressed her face into his hair, breathing him in, her tears wetting his pajamas. It's okay, sweetheart, she whispered. Mommy's here. The real mommy. But when she laid him back in bed, her eyes drifted to the mirror across the room. For just a second, she thought she saw two reflections staring back. Her own. And Serena's, smiling faintly in the glass. And that was the chilling story of the wrong babysitter. Imagine coming home to find someone else living your life, stealing your child's trust, and pretending to be you. Do you think Serena was truly taken away for good, or is she still out there, waiting for her next chance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more stories that will keep you awake at night.